Hello and welcome to a glimpse into my nightmares. I am actually genuinely confused on why I bought this spider. At the time, I thought it was a good idea, but unfortunately, it has dominated my dreams. What do you want? I am actually afraid of spiders, and painting this model wasn't as much fun as I thought it would be. Well, while my dog explores my next project, I hope you enjoy the video and have fun. Yes, yep. I'll get you dinner in a minute. Now, when I say I didn't enjoy any of the painting process for this model, it's purely because I was terrified of the model itself. And when I say it dominated my dreams, I mean nightmares really. To demonstrate what I would see every time I woke up in the middle of the night, what you see now is a close approximation of what I was dreaming about. Thinking to myself that furry things are generally cute and cuddly, I thought that adding static grass to the tarantula would make it look more friendly. This was achieved simply by adding some PVA glue to the areas I wanted fur, applying the static grass with the applicator, which is impossible to film, after which using a soft brush to gently nudge the hair in the right direction. As for the harder to reach areas, individual hairs can be coaxed into the orientation I like. As I also use the cheapest static grass I own, pulling out the longer individual hairs is also necessary. When I purchased this little tarantula, I didn't know it come with a base, and as there's no real modelling to this kit, I decided to do some modelling. I had a spare dark elf from Games Workshop that I can incorporate into the diorama to create a scene like a little story's being told. As there was no real flat parts on the base, I had to build an additional platform. Unfortunately, I had already glued the dark elf to the base that came in the kit, so after gently removing her from the base, I had to scrape out all the footholds again to make sure when I re-glue her on there, she doesn't look like she's floating on top of it. Originally, I used some super glue to glue some acetate to the base. This, however, didn't stick very well, so I got out my trusty hot glue gun to melt and weld all the plastics together. If you're doing this, just remember the thin acetate will melt if the hot glue touches it too long. If this was a DIY around the house, I would consider this job done. But however, I think I need to tidy it up a bit more. As long as my wife doesn't see that I am capable with polyfiller to cover up my shoddy workmanship, I should be safe to keep the DIY jobs at home half done. By gluing stones into the polyfiller helps it blend in to the rest of the base, giving it a nice uneven surface. I did think the finish looked too smooth still, so to add extra texture, I added PVA glue to the entire surface except for the footholds, and covered the area in my special blend of sand. This consists of construction sand I acquired from walking past building sites, as well as some over roasted ground down coffee beans. If I remember correctly, this is the end of my scratch building powers. Time to paint. After I'd re-primed everything in black, including the spider's fur and the scratch built edition, I decided, as the models were very large, airbrushing all the base colours would be a good idea, as I could cover large areas and keep the blending quick and simple without too much effort. I always start this process using another grey primer from Vallejo to start laying down the areas that are facing towards the light source, which I decided was going to come from the rear of the model to the left. Lighting from the rear looks spookier than lighting from the front. Once the grey primer is put down, which was also lightly sprayed from top down, it's time for the white ink. I spray this only from where the light source is directly coming from. Unfortunately, to use technical terms, the grey primer is more of a fill light, which creates softer shadows all around the model, and the white ink is the key light, which is the main source of light and creates the deeper shadows. Although black shadows can be eerie, muted green tones are downright scary. This was applied like the key light, but from the opposite direction. And if you find all your greens are too bright, desaturating them with a grey will help in making them less vibrant. I have heard that adding the opposite complementary colour can help in desaturating the colour. I, however, have not tried it, as I find grey works just perfectly fine. Once the base highlights and shadow tones are put down, it's time to apply a thin coat of the brightest colour you would like the model or skin to be. This has to be applied all over the figure, making sure not to apply it too thick to help create the illusion that the entire body is the same colour. Your eyes and brain will decipher the different tones in colour to sell that three-dimensional look, giving your figure even more depth. This is all I can hear when airbrushing. This is advertised as whisper quiet. The spider's skin is still too uniform in colour, so it's time to mix an ink and a matte medium that I know don't work well together, although you think they would, to create a pale white glaze. Once I had achieved the consistency of a normal glaze I would use, I applied a thin layer all over the model. This also included the skin of the little dark elf, which I'd airbrushed the same colours as the spider. As you can see here, the ink does not dry smoothly, but gives that very patchy mottled effect I was looking for. I can't recommend more than using good reference images, like I have here on my paper tablet, to help with how, where and which patterns to paint on your spider. These were painted on using a very dark brown, which does actually look black on the camera, but it is very dark brown. Look, you can use black for this part, it doesn't matter. The only real advice I could give for this part is just don't be precise. Be as random and sketchy as possible. It will look too unnatural if you try being too precise. Nature is random, use that to your advantage. One of my lovely subscribers requested I paint an ornate baboon tarantula, also known as a Heteroscodra, or Hamax for short. As my skills are nowhere near close enough to paint one of those, I decided to use it more as an inspiration. I honestly had no idea how I was going to paint this arachnid, so I am ever so grateful and thankful for the request. I honestly believe this would have become one of those regretful purchases that would just sit in the bottom of my shelf forever, if it wasn't for Hambone Bob for the request. And the yellow-legged centipede does nip this in the post for more terrifying to me, but I digress. After using some of my wife's sponge to apply chipping to all of the spider, I applied white dots, or an off-white really, in a random pattern all over the round bumpy thing that's on the back of a spider. As the contrast between the very dark brown and a lighter skin is far too harsh and creates sharp edges, using a thin downed grey paint, also known as the very dark brown and the off-white mixed together, sponge chipping is applied to the entire model. This will help break up all the sharp edges and give the black areas a bit of colour variation. Weirdly, it was at this point my nightmares started happening when I went to sleep. I kid you not, I was about ready to jack in this project, but I realised I hadn't breathed in any chemicals recently, so after 2 days of crying and sobbing and shaking in the corner, I made a wash using some burnt umber oil with some low odour spirits and applied it to the entire arachnid. As the wash was relatively thin, I made sure there was kitchen towel underneath the legs to catch all the drops as it dried. For the base, I just applied a darker raw umber wash all over. Now, I know I joke around and that, but if you are using chemicals, make sure you're using an air purifier, as they are just mainly fans in little boxes. I have upgraded the internals of this with more carbon filters. Now it's time to wind up the wife. I found these pink spongy type things that say blending on them. I found out they're great for wiping off the excess oil. This particular model did take 2 days to dry, mainly because it's very cold and very humid where I live. Don't be tempted to use a hairdryer to dry oils. They will normally crack when they dry. If you do, just bear in mind, the more you wipe, the more oil you will take off. Also, if anyone's watching and knows how to remove oil paint from a beauty sponge, please let me know so my wife doesn't know I've used it. The same process was done on the base, but however, that took another day to dry. I also broke a piece off of the sponge, so I'm begging anyone out there, please let me know how to fix this, or my tarantula-infused nightmares are the least of my problems. As most of this spider is skin, it's only really the small details that need painting. For the eyes, you can either paint them black and apply gloss varnish on top, or just use the Vallejo glossy black and skip the varnishing. As this model is quite large, I'm not painting any specular highlights. The natural light will actually do that for me. For the fangs, Akarath Flesh and Agarak's Earthshade, or off-white and a brown wash, create the base tone. Applying the dark brown wash in all the creases and recesses of the model, as well as the dense hairy areas, will help to reinforce the shadows and shading in the model. Also, the darker the creases in the model, the brighter the other colours look. Your brain will fool you. I did, however, want to keep the base quite neutral. I don't know if it's my style, but that's just how I like it. So I lightly highlighted some of the bones and skulls. I then used the original off-white or Rakarath flesh to apply edge highlighting to the fangs to help them stand out. These were then reinforced using an almost pure white, which is actually called Rotten White from Vallejo's Game Effects range. I also applied this to the bottom of all the scratches in the fangs to reinforce the cuts, and then gently, or ever so gently, applied it to all the areas on the skulls that were facing the direct light source. To take a break from all the horrific nightmares I was receiving, I decided let's paint the little miniature figure. For this, I mainly used inks. I know that inks are very transparent, yet highly pigmented and vibrant in colour, that they would work well as speed paints. As I'd already airbrushed the lights and shadows on the model, the inks would change in tone depending what was underneath them. I followed the same process when it came to the boots, using a darker green. I chose green not because of the comic book Incredible Hulk, but because I wanted to add green to the fangs to help tie it into the little figure. I wanted to keep the little dark elf figure quite simple, so I painted the weapon and jewellery using metallics from the useless Citadel pots, mainly something gold and lead belcher, which then led me to the eyes. I carefully painted the eyeballs in the brightest white I own, and then filled in the eye sockets using an off-white to start some glowing eyes. I then went over the whites using a Vallejo fluorescent orange to help create those "you're gonna do what I tell you to" spider eyes. And it's only by accident that I found out that purple, green and orange are actually a triad of complementary colours. Neat Agrax Earthshade was applied on the metallics, and a watered down version was on the skin. I'm not quite sure what drew me to buy this model in particular. It's a nice collarbones. Now, it's important when using any sort of shade or wash to apply the original colour as a dry brush on top for a nice simple highlighting effect. For the hair and skirt, I still used an off-white as I didn't have a light purple or pink to hand. Now comes the final gluing of the model together. I will say use gloves and hold the model very delicately because oils can take weeks to dry. As you can see, I'm being very careful in picking this up when gluing it to the base. The oil will wipe off. I also realised I was overzealous on the dry brushing and covered up the metallics on the figure. But I own the paintbrush, so an edge highlighting will fix that problem. If you do need tweezers to pick up your model, putting kitchen towel between the tweezers and the figure will help prevent scraping the paint. As there is paint and oil on the model, holding the figure in place is needed for the super glue to seep in. Now it's time for the Oohoo Glue Gore. Squeeze out a dollop of the Oohoo glue and attach it to a cocktail stick or needle or anything thin really, and let gravity pull that little ball of glue down. When the little blob looks right, scrape the little stick onto the fang to attach that teardrop of glue. You might find that even when you think it's dry, it's still quite tacky. But if you're very careful in applying the little blood effects paint, or red paint and gloss varnish, when that paint dries, the little teardrop will be hard and not sticky at all. As the fangs do puncture flesh, dabbing random splotches of red paint on them makes them look used. As we all know, fangs, teeth, wet, slimy are all very scary, so apply some gloss varnish on top of them. And there we have it, the nightmare-infueled model that I just created. And if you think I'm joking, no, I have had many sleepless nights over this one. This particular figure came out better than I expected and worse than I ever expected. I would have been happier if it looked cartoonish or didn't even look real at all. But that's kind of my problem. So, let me know what you think. Is it actually any good? Does it look real? I'd love to know. Let me know your feedback. You can't hurt my feelings. My wife is much better at that than you. So, I'd like to say thanks Hambone Bob for your suggestion, It was greatly appreciated. Just before I say thanks for watching and have fun, I just need some sleep. These nightmares are killing me. Please help.